What's up, guys? Happy Sunday. Chuck and Jayhawk here to bring you a nice little three-gamer. We have a couple of injury notes. The first major one, it's not listed on the screen when I pull it up, but Terry Rozier left the game yesterday due to a groin strain. I haven't seen any news. If you guys see something before I do, please let us know in the chat. But with groin strains, I feel like it's pretty unlikely that he plays today. So I'm assuming that Terry Rozier is out. That's how I built my lineups. You got anything else? Any early thoughts, Jayhawk?
Yeah, just for me, probably just going to be targeting, these later two games. Not really too interested in the first game with Golden State and Cleveland.
Well, you know me, because the first game is pretty uninteresting for DFS. I'm probably going to be over targeting in, and we'll see how that goes. I mean, we have two studs, Donovan Mitchell and Steph Curry. They're both. Let's pull up the model here. So Steph Curry, second in the model. Donovan Mitchell is quite a bit lower than we're used to seeing him. He's usually going to be right at the top when he's playing. But those are two spots from the first game I don't mind getting to. The peripheral players, not super interesting. I'm not really getting to much of them in. Let me just take a double look at DraftKings. Yeah, my DraftKings builds, I'm getting a little bit of Evan Mobley, a little bit of Darius Garland, and then Gary Payton is pretty much the only value play that I'm getting from this game, and a little bit of Dario Saric over on DraftKings as well. Take a look at what I got on FanDuel for this game. Yep, FanDuel kind of the same thing, except they really messed up Klay Thompson's price today. 5,200 on FanDuel. What do we think about that?
Yeah, I love that play. 5,200. I mean, play should not be that cheap. Hasn't he been shooting bad, or like what's the issue there with play?
Yeah, he just unfortunately he doesn't look like the Klay Thompson that we've been used to for the past few years. But if you guys remember, if you played DFS last year, if you just paid attention to the NBA, he got off to a really slow start last year, and he still led the league in 3-pointers made. So Klay Thompson at 5,200 on FanDuel, that's going to be a spot that I'm targeting pretty heavily. Um,
Yeah, I like that. I think
it's
that's a
kind
really
of
good play.
it's kind of surprising that he's not even okay. So he's actually second on FanDuel value after Grant Williams. So yeah, Klay Thompson projected for 40% on FanDuel. The 6,600 price on DraftKings, under 10% ownership. I think I'll still take a few shots there, but not quite the priority that he's going to end up being on FanDuel. And then in terms of other injuries, we've had Anthony Simons out for a few slates. They finally priced up Malcolm Brogdon to where I thought that we could just not play him today, but Malcolm Brogdon is still looking very good in the model. He's pretty close to the top. His value score is good on both sites. Him and Shaden Sharp, it's going to be the spots from Portland, I think, the pay ups anyway. And Malcolm Brogdon, 7,800, 7,700, projected for 48 and 67% ownership. What are we doing there?
Yeah, man, it's just tough to avoid these guys. Particularly Brogdon. He's just really taken over this offense. I've been playing him since he was like sub 5K on DraftKings. Right as Simons got hurt. So, as much as I hate to say it, I think we need to play him once again at 7,800 tonight. And then Sharp, I don't know about you. I'll let you get your take on Sharp, but for me, it's a little bit too pricey now, and that last game hurt me a lot. So, yeah, that's kind of my take there.
So one of my issues with Sharp is that I kind of expect a little bit more in terms of peripheral stats, rebounds and assists. He's getting some a game, but he's not really blowing up the stat sheet. So he's kind of scoring dependent. But at this 7,100 price on FanDuel, even though he's coming in for 33% ownership on FanDuel, just due to the lineup construction, I'm still going to get there a bit. The 7,600 on DraftKings, 15%. I think that's appropriate, if not slightly low. So I'm going to take some shots on him over there. But it looks like Malcolm Brogdon is going to be priority from Portland again. Let's see. And then Memphis, we already knew that Ja Morant's been out and Marcus Smart has been starting at the point guard position, and this team is just tragic. They definitely need some playmaking. They need to get Desmond Bane some help scoring the basketball. JJJ's been trying his hardest, but he's not quite getting there. Zaire Williams was expected to make a leap, and he looks fine, and he's going to be a pretty solid value play on both sides. But I'm not sure that we're super interested in anyone else here. Luke Kennard is going to be projected for some crazy ownership again, and it's just on a 3-game slate, it's a little different. But on the previous slate where Luke Kennard was the chalk value, it's just a spot that I'm just not interested in. He's coming off the bench, and it's just it seems a little bit too much. And then I want to say David Roddy was the other guy showing up for higher ownership too. Yeah, 30% on both sides at 4K. I mean, if he's in the starting lineup again, and assuming he is, since it's the exact same matchup as the previous game, he started for Xavier Tillman. That game starts 3 hours after lock, so we'll have to see. But I mean, David Roddy tonight, if he puts up what he did last game, which is about 19 fantasy points in however many minutes, then that should be enough.
Yeah, just to add on what you said about Roddy, he's actually a former CSU Ram, go Rams. That's where I go to college. But yeah, he's been really good. As long as he picks up the start once again, I love him at 4K. So I love that call with Roddy.
And then Xavier Tillman off the bench. It's not the most exciting play, but he is going to come in with a little bit lower ownership, 5% on DraftKings, 10% on FanDuel. He still played 29 minutes. Granted, I believe he played in the overtime, so he got a few extra minutes because of that. But I think it's still a spot we can go where we don't really have a lot of low owned plays who, I don't know, who just project okay, I guess. So I guess we can still go by position today. So looking at the guards, Luka Doncic, very clearly the top of the model, followed by Kyrie Irving. So are we jamming Luka today?
Man, it's tough. It's just tough to get up there, right? Because we have so many good, mid tier plays and not a ton. I mean, we have value, but it's not like standout value. So, I mean, I'm still gonna get there, a little bit, but I think I prefer this mid tier route with Bane and JJJ, um, rather than paying up the Luca. But he's still a great play against Charlotte.
Yeah, I mean, when I was building out my lineups, I was trying to get more if I could, but it's just hard because then yeah, we do have to play guys like Luke Kennard and David Roddy likely in the same lineup. Mix in Zaire Williams, but Luca's going to be tough to get to on DraftKings tonight, and then on FanDuel, I'm actually getting even less on FanDuel. I'm right around the field on both sites, but I'm going to see if maybe we get some value open up later. It's probably unlikely today with only 3 games on the slate, but I don't know if I can fit him in. It's a pretty good matchup for him against Charlotte. Kyrie Irving is on the court, so maybe that slightly hurts Luka's production, but it's Luka Doncic. It doesn't really matter. And then Kyrie Irving. How interested are we in Kyrie?
Yeah, I think Kyrie's fine. I think I'd just rather find the salary for Luca. I'm not saying Kyrie isn't necessarily a good player. I just kind of, prefer Luca. I think Luca does more. Obviously, it comes with a different price tag, but I think if I'm playing one of the Dallas studs, I'd probably shift towards Luca more than Kyrie. I don't know about you though.
Yeah, it's like so. A lot of the times, if it was a larger slate, I might be tempted to put some kind of rule where play max one of these players, Luca or Kyrie. But today, I don't think I'm really going to be able to get that many lineups with both of them anyway. So if I have a couple of those in my set, then I'm okay with it. But I mean, Kyrie's a player that we've seen. He has a ceiling. It's just how often is he going to reach it on Dallas? But his ownership isn't bad. 13% on DraftKings, 23% on FanDuel seems more appropriate. So I'll take some shots on Kyrie. But then Steph Curry and Donovan Mitchell from the first game. We had a question about do we think Donovan Mitchell will play a full game tonight? Unless he's ruled out, we have no reason to believe he's going to be on any kind of minutes limit or limited in any way. So as long as we don't get some kind of news that he's out, and I haven't seen anything about him being questionable, we just assume he's a full go. He's going to play his normal minutes. We haven't projected for 36 in the model. At 19% on DraftKings, 13% on FanDuel. The FanDuel price 10-4. I mean, he's the second most expensive player on the slate, so it's a little bit tougher to get to, but it's a pretty decent piece of leverage when you're considering that Malcolm Brogdon is coming in for 67% ownership on FanDuel at 7,700. Now, yeah, he's a little bit more expensive. We're going to have to downgrade one of the other positions to fit in Donovan Mitchell likely, or we can play him alongside Malcolm Brogdon too. That's fine. But it's a spot that I don't mind getting to. I'm probably going to try and force him in, and the builder's not really going to give me much Donovan Mitchell if I'm just building out regularly. So I'm likely going to have to put in a minimum exposure. And then DraftKings 9,600 at 19%. I think that's fine too. Do you have a preference between Donovan or Steph if you were going to play one?
I think, oh man, that's tough because Cleveland. I mean, they can be good on defense. I think with Allen back and Garland back, I think they're a little bit better. And then already like knowing that we are playing a little bit of Clay, I think I would slightly slide with Donovan, but I think it's pretty close.
I like that call too. And it is one thing to keep in mind that Donovan Mitchell's price might be slightly inflated from when Darius Garland and Jared Allen were not on the court. Darius Garland's going to affect Donovan Mitchell slightly more than Jared Allen, but I'm assuming that those two are still going to be on a minutes limit. They were in the first game that they played. The first game they played back, uh, whenever that was, a couple of days ago. But I don't know. I like paying, like, overpaying for these guys if they're coming in at low ownership. They have high ceilings, and I think it's a good matchup with Golden State. I think this is a pretty good game. And Steph Curry at 7% on DraftKings, 2% on FanDuel. I'm gonna be over the. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna be over the field on those numbers.
Yeah, no,
Then
I agree.
and then you're a pretty big LaMelo fan, right? And LaMelo's been
Yeah.
on a minutes limit. It's been a little bit tough for me to get there, but today the 8,400 on FanDuel is a little bit appealing. Especially, I'm assuming that Terry Rozier is out. Maybe we get some news that he plays. I don't think so, but how do you think that's going to affect LaMelo?
Obviously a massive usage bump with no Rozier. Man, I just like we said earlier, like his minutes, like they're just not the high minutes we're usually accustomed to with Lamelo. So it's probably I still think he's solid as price tag on both sides, but it's gonna be tougher with him not getting full minutes to click on him over maybe a Luca or Donovan Mitchell. I know they're a little bit different price points, but we know those guys are playing max minutes and they're just a little bit more expensive.
Like, it almost seems crazy today that we're playing so much more Malcolm Brogdon than we are LaMelo, and LaMelo's really not that more expensive than Malcolm Brogdon. He's a few $100s, but it seems like I think it's the correct thing. Uh, so the Charlotte is on a back to back. LaMelo played 31 minutes yesterday, and I'm not sure if they would rest him. If Terry Rozier was in, maybe they would. They would. We'll have to see if we get that news. But if they end up resting LaMelo for some reason, then it just opens up so much more on Charlotte. But
Yeah,
I think his price tag on FanDuel is fine. I mean, it's basically the same price on DraftKings, but it's a little bit harder to fit him in due to the lack of value. But 30
yeah,
minutes from LaMelo on today's slate, it could be enough.
yeah. That's what I was about to say. I think he's better on FanDuel at that price point. On DraftKings, I'll probably still get just a little, just because we know Lamelo has a ceiling. But yeah, definitely more FanDuel preferred there.
And we have a question in the chat about Darius Garland. Do we think he plays a full game? I don't think so. I mean, what is a full game to this coach? Because 32 minutes is basically almost a full game for him. So, I mean, if he gets to 32 minutes at this price tag, he's a fine play. I'm not sure I'm going to get there too much. I'd rather just pay a little bit more and get to the other guys. But Darius Garland's another guy who has shown us a ceiling. And at this price, I mean, he's fine. He's a pivot off of Malcolm Brogdon, save a few $100s. But again, I don't know. I don't think we should be pivoting off of Malcolm Brogdon. I think he's just too strong of a play. Like, I'm not going to be playing him out in 100% of my lineups or anything, but it looks like he's going to be one of my core pieces tonight. So,
Yeah, I agree. I just think Brogdon's in a better role here. Safer minutes, better usage rate. So yeah, I agree.
so keep in mind this 44 minutes. They played overtime, so he had 39 in regulation, which is already insane. I remember last year there were rumors that the Celtics could not find a uh, a trade partner because his injury was so bad. But now they're just out. I mean, Portland, do they care? They should care. I mean, they need a veteran presence, and Malcolm Brogdon's a great veteran presence. So his fantasy points per minute this year has been well over one. And so if we can assume close to that 39 minutes, I think we have him for 34 minutes. I mean, 34 minutes at this price tag, it seems like it's fine on today's slate.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, do you think there's any shot after playing OT, knowing Brogdon and him being a veteran, that they rest him, like a late like scratch or rest in it?
No, no. We
Yeah,
haven't heard any news. If they were going to do that, I feel like we would have heard about it already. And the problem
yeah,
with doing that is then they have to play Skylar Mays the entire game, and I don't think it's not quite Skylar Mays' time of the season yet.
yeah. No, I was just
So
curious because I was just like maybe possibility, but probably not.
I do believe Shaden Sharp was Shaden Sharp questionable today. Okay, no, Shaden Sharp's in. So as far as we know, they're all going to play, and then we can take our time a little bit today since there's only 3 games. So we're going to talk about most of the players that are fantasy relevant. So we still have Terry Rozier in the model. Like I said, I don't think that he plays, but we haven't gotten that news yet. So that's just an assumption that I'm making based off his groin injury. He exited the game. It was a close game. So, I mean, if he could have played, I imagine that he would have. But the other big spot on the slate, Desmond Bain, he came in for actually pretty low ownership the last time out against Portland, and he put up just a monster game, probably the best game of his whole career. And at 36 minutes, 8,700 and 8,800 at 30 and 41% ownership, I think it's a spot I'm going to go right back to.
Yeah, he looks really, really good tonight. Just him and JJJ kind of just they're kind of on a tier for me. We know the offense runs through them. They are priced out, but just like in preseason, right? We targeted them. They were lower prices, but that's where the offense is going through with no jaw on the court. So I think they're great plays.
And then there's one more guy I want to talk about here. Marcus Smart on Memphis. So he's been hot and cold this season. Yeah, I already see Jayhawk shaking his head. So the thing with Marcus Smart is he's playing all the minutes. Like I mentioned that Memphis is in desperate need of a playmaker, and I'm not sure Marcus Smart is quite a playmaker, but I mean, 39 minutes with the overtime. So we figure 34, 35 minutes. We haven't projected for 34 minutes. I think he's a great GPP play tonight. I think a lot of people aren't going to want to play him. He's actually projected for 22% on DraftKings. It's a little higher than I thought. The 50% on FanDuel makes sense. Just we have to play 2 point guards over there. He's only point guard eligible over there. But Marcus Smart, I think he's a GPP play. He's not core or anything. He's not safe, but I think his price is still fine with the ceiling that he showed that he has on Memphis. And he showed the ceiling a little bit last season on the Celtics too. It's just, I think he's going to be on the court a lot. And yeah, just a good GPP play, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit biased because I had him as my low owned piece last slate, and let's just say that he was not my favorite player after the last slate. But we can't be too biased. Like he's still out there playing minutes, so I agree. I think strictly tournament play. I don't know if I'm gonna get there. I just prefer the other Memphis guys.
Let's take a look at some of the value pieces. We've went over the stud guards. Excuse me. So it's a 3-game slate, but when we have some of the stud guards showing up at the top of value, I mean, that just tells you how bad the value is on the slate. Like Kyrie's top of value, then Shaden, then Luka Doncic, who is $2,000 more than any other player on the slate. So the model is telling us to play Luka Doncic any way that you can. We'll see if we can find a couple other value plays to squeeze them in. Malcolm Brogdon also near the top of value. And then our first actual value play, Luke Kennard, the guy that I mentioned I really don't want to play. We haven't projected for 22 minutes. Let's take a look at Luke Kennard's minutes log. So he played 27. I'm guessing he played a couple minutes in the overtime because that's a little bit higher than we'd expect, but 15, 21, 27 minutes. I mean, if he gets hot from 3, he can get there. He's shooting 2 for 17 from 3 this year. That's very unlike Luke Kennard. I mean, this guy signed a massive contract because he was one of the best shooters in the NBA. So I'd expect this to get closer to the 40+% that we're used to seeing from Luke Kennard. And so I mentioned, like, I really don't want to play him, but if it allows me to fit in Luka, actually, it kind of looks like I'm going to be getting to Luke Kennard, even at this 46% on DraftKings, 34% on FanDuel. There might just not be a way around it.
Yeah, he's one of those guys I hate picking on shooting reliant players, but did they? I don't remember. Did they close that game? Did they take out Smart and close with Kennard, or was Kennard just closing with Smart on the court? Because I was wondering because Smart didn't play like a ton of minutes, but I didn't know if Kennard had anything to do with that.
Actually, I can see if I can pull this up on my other screen here. Portland. And we did just get the Cleveland starting lineup, so it's going to be as expected, but Isaac Okoro was ruled out, and we're going to have Max Strus in the starting lineup. So Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Max Strus, Evan Mobley, and Jared Allen. So Max Strus, I was just looking at him, actually. He's projected for 3% on DraftKings, 10% on FanDuel. I think that's a spot that I'm going to take some GPP shots tonight. He's in the starting lineup. We haven't projected for 30 minutes. We already had him projected for 30 minutes. So maybe we already had him projected to start. I'm not sure if his value is going to go up any, but it's tough to find low-owned spots that can get there tonight. And so Max Strus, I guess that's a GPP play I'm going to be looking into a little bit more.
Yeah, I think he's a very solid tournament play, especially if he's getting the start there. I like that.
So looking at that Memphis game, yeah, the lineup that they closed with in overtime was Marcus Smart, Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson, and then they went with Luke Kennard and Xavier Tillman. So those guys did play the entire overtime. So their minutes from the previous game were slightly inflated from that. And then Portland played, I actually can't see who the 5th guy was, but Oh, it was Tumani Kamara with Matisse Thybulle, Shaden Sharp, DeAndre Ayton, and Malcolm Brogdon. So, what's interesting about Malcolm Brogdon, this dude played the entire fourth quarter and overtime. So it's just they have no problem running him out. And I think, yeah, I think we play him tonight without any fear.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Let's run out Brogdon. I love it.
And there was another player I was interested in. Maybe he's only forward eligible. Let me just see if there's any other value plays that we want to hit on from the guard position. I think we're paying up at guard tonight, though. It looks like, Luca, Kyrie, Steph, Donovan Mitchell, Shaden Sharp, Malcolm Brogdon. It seems like we're paying up at guard, and hopefully we can find some value at the forward positions. There's just no one else down here interesting. I mean, Tim Hardaway, 25 and 27%. Seems like that's a piece of chalk I'm probably going to try to get away from, but I wouldn't mind it if he was very low owned, but at this ownership, I'm just going to play Klay Thompson and hope that that works out.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm going back and forth because I think there's also a lot of great. Obviously, there's a bunch of great forward values, but I think in the mid tier too, there's a lot of really solid plays. So I'll probably have a little bit of both. Some where I pay for Luca, and then obviously some where I go full mid tier. So I think both are viable. That construction constructing lineups in both plays are viable.
And then I mentioned Gary Payton earlier. The model doesn't love him today, but at 3,800 and 4K, it might be a guy who he might be necessary if we want to fit in Luka Doncic. I think he's fine. He's been in their closing lineup more than a couple times this season, so they're comfortable running him out there. And if he's closing the game, it's pretty valuable minutes, even though his usage is still going to be pretty low. Just the fact that he's going to be on the court in the fourth quarter is something that we're pretty interested in. Karis LeVert showing up at the bottom here. He's projected for 28 minutes, which is pretty good, but 6,500, 6,200 with Max Strus in the starting lineup. Should be a little bit of usage for Karis off the bench. Not quite a priority, though. His price tag is probably still elevated from when Darius Garland was not out or was not playing. So, not sure that's a spot I'm going to get to tonight. And I just saw a notification that Jalen Duren got ejected from the Portland
Oh boy,
or from the Detroit Suns game that's going on right now. I think it's close to the end anyway, but I'll have to see how my early lineups are doing.
yeah, that's not good.
So, top of the OF index for forwards today, Jaren Jackson, Shaden Sharp, Evan Mobley. I think these guys all look great. And then we can see how hard the fall off. Like Grant Williams is the fourth best forward according to the model. That's never a good thing. And Grant Williams, I mean, basically 5K on both sides, 16% and 8% ownership. What have his minutes been like? Because it's like historically, players playing next to Luka have such low usages that, especially a player like Grant Williams, he just has to hit threes and get some steals and blocks to get there. But I mean, 30 plus minutes is pretty good. We don't have that many guys priced at 5K who are going to play 30 minutes tonight. And these fantasy scores, if he puts up one of these scores tonight, like the 12's not great, but if he can do this, then we're going to be very happy to have him in our lineup. So he's shooting insane from three. I mean, 4 for 8, 7 for 9, 3 for 7. That's unlikely to keep up, but maybe he can keep that up tonight and throw in a blocker steal or two, and that'll be fine. He's projected for 16% and 8%, so it actually kind of looks like Grant Williams is a spot that I'm going to be targeting tonight.
Yeah, I like Grant Williams a ton tonight. I think that's too cheap on both sides for him.
And then Klay Thompson next. I like PJ Washington a lot, especially if we know that Terry Rozier's out. And Gordon Hayward was the other spot on Charlotte that I'm pretty interested in. He had a really good game yesterday. I'm hoping that that doesn't inflate his ownership today. We're seeing 22 and 26% right now. But yeah, Gordon Hayward, if Terry Rozier's out, he's just going to have more ball handling responsibility. And we already know that he's going to get some rebounds. So Gordon Hayward seems like a pretty good spot. And the other guy that I'm going to be actually very interested, especially at this ownership, is the rookie Brandon Miller. I believe he was the second overall pick. He hasn't really shown us anything in the NBA yet, but 5.7K at under 10% ownership on both sites. If Rozier's out, he should have an opportunity to do a little bit more. So let's take a look. I mean, he's already playing over 30 minutes in most of these games, and he's not quite doing enough. But if Rozier's out, maybe he gets that extra usage. Is this someone you're going to be interested in tonight?
Yeah, I think he's going to be kind of relying off I'm sorry, not Lamelo, if Rozier plays or not. So if Rozier doesn't play, I'm going to really like Miller. But I still think in tournaments, I think he's pretty solid. 5,700. What is he like projected for? What, like 10%. Let me check his ownership.
Yeah, 7 and 9%. So I imagine if we get the Rozier news before lock, that's going to shoot up. But if we get the Rozier news after lock, then he's probably going to be a little bit lower owned. Not everyone's going to take advantage of late swap. You know, it's Sunday, people are watching football, and the slate starts a little bit earlier today. So Brandon Miller, I think he's a pretty decent spot, even though the model doesn't love him. The model still has Terry Rozier in, so I imagine that this is going to go up slightly if we get that Terry Rozier news. And then Unicorn Love in the chat asking about LaMelo. Yeah, we don't mind LaMelo. He's on a back to back. He played 30 minutes yesterday, but if Rozier ends up being out, I mean, LaMelo looks good in value. He looks good in the OF index. His ownership is probably appropriate. I'm more interested on FanDuel, I think, than on DraftKings, but we can still get there. He's been having a pretty rough start to his season. So, and with the minutes restriction, I've been hesitant to get there. But on a 3-game slate, we don't have many options. LaMelo, he should be a fine option today.
Yeah, I completely agree. Sorry, my AirPods died. Does it still sound good?
Yeah, you sound great.
Cool.
And just a couple more forwards. I mean, we're going to basically name every player that's fantasy relevant today, so bear with us. But Jeremy Grant had a great game last game, projected for pretty heavy ownership, 30% and 51% at this about 6,700 price. But after Malcolm Brogdon and Shaden Sharp, I mean, he's the guy over on Portland. We know he's going to take shots. We know that he's going to, we hope that he's going to rebound the basketball. He hasn't been getting many peripheral stats this season, so he's also a little bit scoring reliant, but we're not too concerned about that today. But the price is probably appropriate, if not a little bit cheap. He took 23 shots last game, and he's been pulling. So Jeremy Grant, another spot that we're going to get to. I'm not quite sure he's in my core, but he's a little bit more than a GPP play for me.
Yeah, I mean, Jeremy Grant, I still prefer obviously Sharp, Brogdon, and Aiden, but Grant just like he's one of those guys where like if I get to him, I'm fine with it, but I'm not gonna like force him in to my lineup. Does that make sense? I don't know. He's not like like you said, I don't think he's a core guy.
Let me see what I ended up with. So I haven't made all my edits, but my initial DraftKings run before the show started, I got 35% of Grant, so I'm basically a little bit over the field. And then on FanDuel, I'm at 70% Jeremy Grant. That's going to come down. I don't think I'm comfortable running there. I'm probably going to try and get some of the other guys like PJ Washington. Probably need to boost Zaire Williams, who is showing up. I guess he's not showing up great, but if we're sorting by value, Zaire Williams is right at the top, right under Grant Williams. So Zaire Williams, I think he's fine. He's been playing minutes and he's improving. He kind of does a little bit of everything. So it's not a bad value play to get to today. The other guys up here, though, Derek Jones Jr., it's gross, but at these prices, you know, he's going to help us fit in some of the studs. His ownership's in check. So Derek Jones Jr. could be a spot. I'd rather get there than David Roddy, I think. And then, the other top of value guys like Shaden Sharp, Jaren Jackson, they're the pay-ups. PJ Washington, I think, looks great. Klay Thompson, especially on FanDuel, Klay Thompson's going to look awesome. Matisse Thybulle. So Matisse Thybulle was showing up at the top of value in the model last season very frequently. And he was a tournament winner a few times, but the situation's a little bit different without Damian Lillard there. And the model doesn't love him. In 20 minutes, he's going to be a GPP play at these prices, though.
Yeah, I agree. I'm trying to look and see if there's anyone else that we haven't mentioned, or at least that I'm considering. How about like the PJ Washington and Hayward? If let's say Rozier misses, are you going to get to any of those guys?
Oh, yeah. It's looking like PJ Washington's going to be my highest owned player on FanDuel, even as it is now. I guess I already bumped in with Terry Rozier out. But then Gordon Hayward, I think I need to bump a little bit more. But I think it's just due to positions that power forward's a harder spot to fill over on FanDuel, especially if I'm trying to get a little bit less Jeremy Grant. But I love PJ Washington. He looks great. So
yeah, me too. I think one of the, if the top forward play, one of the best. So I agree.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to be my top forward play. Actually, my second forward play right now is Brandon Miller. So I already like Brandon Miller, so I'm going to be on Charlotte pretty heavily, it looks like. And so it makes sense if I can fit in as much Luka, maybe some Kyrie as possible to get maybe that game just shoots out. We'll see.
Yeah, I think the Charlotte game could arguably be just as good, especially if there's injuries on both sides. Obviously, Dallas plays pretty fast, and then Charlotte plays really fast, so that should be a really up-tempo, good fantasy scoring game as well.
And there was something I wanted to look at here. Who's this other player? Oh, the question in the chat. Wiggins is overdue. So Andrew Wiggins, last year, if he was this price, I'd be playing 100%. But he has not been playing well, and he hasn't been closing games. And he made a comment asking, I don't know what the question was, but his answer was something to the tune of, I don't care if we're winning games, then it's fine. I need to play better, it's just such a professional answer. I love that from him. And so he recognizes he hasn't been playing well. He hasn't been shooting well, and he's projected for decent ownership today. I think he played 25 minutes. So he played 27 minutes in the last game, 25 the game before. These fantasy scores are not something that we love, but he's a better player than whatever this is showing on the game log. So Andrew Wiggins today, 5K. He's projected for 13% on DraftKings, 24 on FanDuel. Yeah, I don't mind getting there. I'm probably going to be at least around the field. I'll have to see how it turns out after I make some edits. But Andrew Wiggins, pretty good GPP play. I certainly like him more than getting to Tumani Kamara, even though Kamara is cheap. 14%, 24% ownership is not bad. Are you going to get to Kamara today?
Kamara's the other guy that had tilted me so hard. I thought he was such a good play off the bench. And yeah, so in terms of today's slate, I just don't know. I think he's pretty slim off the bench. I know he's like a pretty good real life basketball player, but he hasn't really stood out in terms of DFS too much. What do you think? He's probably good for what, 15, 17, somewhere around there. I don't know if that's going to cut it. I know he's cheap, but I probably won't get there too much.
So rather than looking at like he's good for 15 or 17 fantasy points, if he fits in your lineup, I mean, he's projected for 27 minutes. Let's see what he played in the previous game. Tumani Kamara. I don't even know what position he is.
He got 2 quick fouls. I think that's what I remember. He got 2 quick fouls, got pulled. I think he lost like probably 5 minutes. So
we're probably looking at about what he's been playing. The 26 minutes would have been 26 without that overtime. And I mean, he's not shooting great. Some games he's not really pulling shots. And so that's a big thing for me, is that his usage is pretty low, playing next to Malcolm Brogdon and Jeremy Grant, whose usages are sky high, also Shaden Sharp. But again, on today's slate, value is scarce. And so it's a spot that I'm still going to take some shots. I'm hoping that people that played him last slate don't want to play him because he kind of failed them. And so like these are the spots I want to get to. When players play bad in the previous game and they underperformed, I wanted to play them more than the field. And we saw this perfect example with Miles Turner yesterday, how he had a monster game the day before. Everyone played him yesterday. It was still a great matchup, but I don't think his ownership would have been as high as it was if he didn't go off the day before. And then he got into foul trouble. He was terrible play. Like any other pivot would have worked out better than Miles Turner. And so I'm probably going to mix in a little bit of Kamara tonight.
Yeah, I completely agree with the Turner play. Like, I mean, I can even sometimes catch myself getting the bias, like if one guy's a bad play, but we can't be doing that too much. It's DFS, it's the next slate. I agree. He's going to be long. I think surely for that reason, that would be why I would play him. So I agree with you.
And then Kennard or Derek Jones Jr. on DraftKings. So the way that I look at this is I'm just going to sort by the model value and just whoever's higher in the model value of index. If they're similar, I'm usually going to go with the lower owned player, but it depends on the rest of your lineup. If the rest of your lineup is chalk, then you definitely want to go with the lower owned player. If you already have a couple of contrarian players on your lineup, then you can go a little bit chalkier. So Kennard or Derek Jones. Derek Jones is the 4th overall on DK value, while Luke Kennard is that like 12th, 13th? So my answer is going to be Derek Jones, just based off of the model.
Yeah, I would prefer Derek Jones to him as well. So,
but the thing, like I already mentioned, Kennard has been shooting awful this season, and so he's going to shoot better going forward. And so Kennard's the spot that I don't mind getting to today either. And then is it Teo Maledon season if no Rozier? So Teo Maledon, it looks like he played 14 minutes in the previous game. Let's take a look at Teo Maledon and see what's going on with this guy. If I'm remembering correctly, this guy was a pretty good value play last season when he got the opportunity to start. We'll have to see what starting lineup Charlotte goes with if Rozier is out. But at 3,800, we have him projected for, let's see, 10% and 5% ownership. Yeah, I think he's a fine GPP play. It's probably going to be a little bit risky. There's no guarantee of the minutes. But if Rozier's out and we know LaMelo Ball is still on a minutes limit, he's playing a back-to-back, then maybe Teo Maledon's in store for a few more minutes than usual. So
yeah, I think
it'll be good.
Yeah, I like that as Turner. I actually was just about to mention him in case I think that's a good mention.
And is it Ish Smith day? Ish Smith hasn't played a minute all season. We'll have to see. He was available to make a season debut on Saturday. He didn't get in. Um, if LaMelo is ruled out, then it might be Ish Smith day. But if LaMelo's in, even if Terry Rozier's out, I feel like they're going to play Teo Maladin more. It's not necessarily just going to go to Ish Smith. But if LaMelo ends up being out for some reason, then he's probably going to become the best value play on the slate. But we don't have that news yet, so he's not someone that I'm building with in mind, though.
Yeah. I'm trying to see. Anyone else? Is there anyone else you like kind of looked at? Derek Lively. Are you going to get to any Derek Lively at center?
Yeah, good transition into centers.
What's up?
Oh no, it's a good transition into centers. So Derek Lively, 5,500, 5,800 projected for basically no ownership on either site. He's a guy I'm willing to take some GPP shots on. If you played NBA DFS the last couple of seasons, you know that bigs versus Charlotte was definitely a thing.
We lost Chuck on the next slide.
Oh, let me go back. Can you hear me, Jayhawk? Is that better?
Yeah, we're gonna.
All right, so we're going to stay on the forward slide, but we're talking about centers. That slide, man, it's been messed up on a couple shows. We'll have to look into that.
It's all good.
What I was saying was bigs versus Charlotte was a thing for the last couple of seasons. It's a little different because now Mark Williams is starting. So I don't know that it's for sure a thing. It certainly could be, but I don't want to target bigs against Charlotte just because of what happened in the past. But Derek Lively at this low ownership, 5,500 and 5,800. I believe he had a monster game 2 games ago. And so just that he has a potential to possibly play 30 minutes. He's seen 30 minutes in 2 games this season. That's enough for me to take shots on a 3%, 1% owned guy on a short slate. And he played 25 minutes in the last game. His usage, I've mentioned guys playing next to Luka, they get basically no usage unless they're Kyrie Irving. And so 13 people are, if people look at this 13 fantasy points and don't want to play him, like it just makes me want to play him more, because if he burns me in a few lineups, it doesn't matter. I have a whole set of lineups. I have other lineups that can compete. But if he ends up being a game changer and puts up, these monster fantasy scores, maybe we get a double from him, then he's a tournament winner. So Derek Lively, I'm definitely going to be over the field on his 3%, 1% ownership.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd get him on one lineup, but yeah, like you said, once he gets the minutes, he's a walking double threat. And yeah, he's got a great matchup here. So I think all those three, if they line up together, he could be in for a big night.
And on the other side of that game, Mark Williams was a center that I've been looking at since I took a look at the slate last night, and projected for 20% and 15% ownership. I like that a lot. I think that's a little bit too low. His price is appropriate, if not a little bit low. And yeah, he went off yesterday, and we're not expecting this 27 points every game. He shot 9 for 12, but his field goal percentage is sky high right now. And maybe with Terry Rozier out, he gets a couple more touches. But another center play that I'd like to get to this is pretty low ownership on today's slate, 20 and 15.
Yeah, another thing is bigs against Dallas has actually kind of been a thing this year. Didn't Jokic, obviously, didn't he have a pretty big game, like 70 fantasy points against Dallas the other day? I know it's Jokic, but most centers have been doing pretty good from what I've seen.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see. It's up to Derek Lively to stop Mark Williams. So, but I'm definitely going to be mixing both of those guys in. But the top center play, it looks like, is going to be Jaren Jackson, but he's power forward eligible. Now, a lot of times I talk about if a guy's power forward eligible, I prefer to play him in the power forward spot so we can fit into other centers on DraftKings. But that's not necessary today. Just we don't have that many good starting centers. There's only 3 games on the slate, 6 starting centers. So if you're playing Jaren Jackson in the center spot, that's completely fine. He's the top-rated center in the model, very close to the top of value as well. And just the 2 other guys who are also up there, DeAndre Ayton and Evan Mobley, are the other pay-ups. DeAndre Ayton started off the season poor. His usage, again, kind of the same thing. He's playing next to Brogdon and Grant, so he's not getting quite the usage that we'd like to see. But if he's coming in at 3% on FanDuel, the 8,200's a little bit tougher to swallow. But 7K on DraftKings seems okay at 21% ownership. And Evan Mobley, I think he's shown enough that he has that ceiling, and against Golden State seems like a good matchup. I don't think this is a type of player that's going to get played off the court if Golden State goes small.
Yeah. You said Mobley?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think he's fine. I just prefer some of the other guys. It's tough for me, but we know he has a ceiling. And yeah, like you said, Allen isn't he limited still? he should be.
Yeah, so they said Jared Allen was limited. I think this dude played like the entire first quarter in the last game. He still only played like 22 minutes, I think. But Jared Allen, his price on DraftKings is not bad, 6,100. It's possible he could get there in the 24 minutes we haven't projected for. At 7% ownership, I might take some shots there. And then the last center I want to mention is Kevon Looney. He's been losing a little bit of minutes since Draymond Green came back, but his price is good on both sides. His ownership is low. So we can give him a look too, but I'm going to prioritize those other guys that we mentioned before Kevon Looney.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think Looney, probably my last favorite play.
We have a question, top sub 5K cash guards. Let's just pull up guards real quick. We're going to sort by model. Assuming if you're talking about FanDuel, I think Klay Thompson is the top cash guard today, 5,200. It's projecting for high ownership. So it's a spot we want to get to. And if you're playing cash, I think Malcolm Brogdon is probably a lock. It's uncomfortable, but if you're playing cash, he's the highest projected ownership on the slate. So we have to go there. And then Luke Kennard's also going to project for high ownership. So for cash, again, it might be uncomfortable, but with the high ownership, Luke Kennard is probably the other cheap cash guard today.
Yeah, I agree. I think obviously Brogdon, like you said, and then I think Bane. I think Bane too. I know he's forward eligible, but as a guard too, I think Bane looks really solid.
All right, so we're gonna get off here in just a couple minutes. If you have any last minute questions, throw them in the chat. We're just gonna go ahead and build out a quick DraftKings dummy lineup. I think the first player I want to start my lineups with, and this is it's a wild day in DFS, but I'm gonna go with the small forward position and put in Grant Williams. Who's our other top values overall? So Grant Williams, Mark Williams, Zaire Williams, top of DK value today. So let's go ahead and throw Mark Williams in there at center.
I like that. I think he's very sneaky.
Let's find maybe who are the FD core plays. I will give you that in about 2 minutes after. Let's get a couple more players in our DraftKings dummy. Do we want to go with Zaire Williams? Do we want to try and find someone else we can fit in? Seems like Luke Kennard's going to be kind of popular. I don't love him, but we'll put in Malcolm Brogdon.
Yeah, Brogdon for sure.
I think I'll put Brogdon at the shooting guard position.
Let's go either Roddy or Zaire. I think Zaire is probably safer, so maybe we got Zaire.
Let's go with Zaire Williams. He's a value play I'm going to be getting to tonight. Let me see what position eligible is this kid on Charlotte, Brandon Miller. Small forward, power forward. So let's put Brandon Miller in our power forward position. Assuming Terry Rozier's out. This is more of a GPP play, so maybe he's not core, but he can be our little differentiator from the rest of the chalk.
Yeah.
And are we going to be able to fit Luka? Let's put Luka and see what it looks like. So we'll have 4,500 left for a position. So we can put Luka at the point guard position. In the guard spot, Luke Kennard.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but yeah, I do. Kennard or Maladin, but I think Maladin's too... let's just go Kennard for this build. I think we can throw in a chalky Kennard.
And I've mentioned Gary Payton. Like, he's a pretty good pivot off Luke Kennard. If he outscores Luke Kennard by 1 fantasy point, that could be tournament winning. So leaves us with 5,300 in the utility. Andrew Wiggins, GPP play, not quite going to make it in the core, though, just because he hasn't been playing the minutes. Probably going to have to rebuild something because this isn't exactly I don't want to leave that much money on the table. I don't love these plays showing up at the top here. So I wonder if we can take someone out for Kennard. Go a little bit more expensive. No, we'll leave Kennard in. Let's take out Brandon Miller.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
PJ Washington, even though he's with Mark Williams, it's fine. They both share the court together. They don't necessarily eat into each other's production. Maybe PJ Washington's rebounds are affected, but we don't really care that much. And that leaves us with 4,700. I think Sarge is a decent GPP play. So, but anyways, the core I think today on DraftKings is Malcolm Brogdon, Grant Williams. I think Mark Williams is a pretty solid option for the core. And then probably one of Luke Kennard or Zaire, PJ Washington. And then, Luka's going to be a great pay up, and then you can fill out the last position.
Yeah, I agree.
And then the FanDuel core today, let's just look at who's projected for the most ownership on FanDuel. It's a pretty good way to get an idea of the core. It looks like it's going to be Malcolm Brogdon. It's probably the first piece in. Jeremy Grant's going to be core again. I love Jaren Jackson. PJ Washington. Honestly, the top of the FanDuel ownership is probably pretty close to core. especially Klay Thompson at 40%. Maybe take out Luke Kennard if you can figure out a way to play anyone but Luke Kennard on FanDuel, especially. At least on DraftKings, he gets the 3-point bonus. But yeah, these guys at the top here, I think, are probably the core on FanDuel. Everyone Klay and above, minus Marcus Smart, but it looks like he's going to be a chalk play too. So he's probably a little risky for core. But then if we mix in a couple GPP plays like Gordon Hayward, Mark Williams, maybe at the center position, Brandon Miller, any other pay up that's not named Luka Doncic, then you're probably different enough. You don't have to try super hard to get different today. Don't try so hard that your lineup is just bad. If you play 1 to 2 of these guys under 20% ownership, that's already enough.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think on this end in particular, just playing, obviously you can play pretty chalky, just get maybe different in 2 spots tonight since it's a 3-gamer rather than just one on big slates, and you should be fine in terms of ownership.
And I mean, if you're getting to one of these deep GPP plays down here, like Derek Lively, you can play the rest of your lineup chalk. He's projected for 1% ownership. That's the only spot you have to get different. And then the other side of it too is it's not just playing the low owned guys. I don't think we should be fading Malcolm Brogdon tonight, but let's say you want to fade Jeremy Grant. That's another way to get a little bit different too. Like you're already going to be different than half of the field by not having Jeremy Grant. Maybe you just have PJ Washington and one of these other forwards down here instead, or even fading 2 of these pieces of chalk. That's a way to get different too. It's not just plugging in a low owned guy. So Jayhawk, thanks for the show today. Sunday afternoon, we got a early slate, 3 games. We got a great Sunday night football game, Bills versus Bengals. So I'm going to be working on lineups for the rest of the night, and then I finally get to sit down and enjoy it later. So any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Not really. Just everyone go check out Chuck's daily plug. He works his ass off on it, and go win some money off of it. So Sunday night football plug after you build your NBA lineups, of course. Got to build the NBA lineups first.
Yeah, Locks in 24. Eric's in the Discord, probably starting about right now if it's not started already. So get in the Discord, instructions in the description below. Like the video.